They tied him to a pillar of black stone and called it justice. The lights of the arena seared through his shredded ghillie suit, illuminating a soldier who should have been forgotten, reduced to ash and memory. Billions of alien eyes watched as Sergeant Elias Kane, U.S. Army Ranger, stood bound before the tribunal of the Defiance. His name was spoken like a curse across the stars. Primitive, stubborn, a man who had turned ambush into art. To the galaxy, this was the day humanity's arrogance ended. To Elias, it was just Tuesday. Quite a crowd, he muttered, lips cracking from thirst, yet his smirk alive. You all buy tickets? Or is this the interstellar version of pay-per-view? The Vathrian announcer tilted its head, missing the sarcasm, and extended its arms to the heavens. Today, this savage dies so that order may reign. Order. Elias nearly laughed. He remembered New Arcadia burning, children shoved into transports while he and his squad laid cover fire with dwindling rounds. He remembered promising his captain that he'd hold the line, then waking to the cold metal cuffs of alien jailers. His men dead, his lungs full of smoke, his camouflage useless against orbital drones. They hadn't captured Soldier. They'd captured a remnant of failure. Yet the broadcast carried him home. On Earth, hack streams filled bars, basements, command posts, even dormitories. Across the net scrolled human commentary. Looks like Florida Man made it to space. But he quotes Chuck Norris before the end. Somebody tell him duct tape's in the mail. He could almost hear them, laughing through tears. Humanity's greatest defense was not its fleets, nor its weapons, but its unshakable refusal to stop cracking jokes when doom came knocking. The High Warden stepped forward, blade gleaming like a sliver of night. Do you have last words, Terran? Elias straightened, wincing against the ropes. His body screamed, but his voice carried, clear and insolent. Yeah, set your clocks. 8 minutes. That's all you've got. The crowd rippled with confusion. The warden sneered. 8 minutes until your blood waters this sand. Elias grinned wider. 8 minutes until something far less boring. Laughter rippled through Earth's pirate chat rooms. What's he planning? Classic bluff. Kane's got that Florida Man energy. But in the refugee flotilla drifting beyond New Arcadia, children repeated his words as mantra. 8 minutes. Mothers whispered it like prayer. 8 minutes. The blade lifted. The arena vibrated. At first, the crowd thought it theater, some new dramatic flourish. Then the sky tore open. A thunderclap rolled across the alien amphitheater, rattling bones, scattering dust. Above, orbit flared with streaks of light. Ships, crude and furious, bursting from hyperspace. Not sleek cruisers. Not noble armadas. Human ships. Miners' freighters plated with scavenged armor. Martian skiffs, wielding railguns welded from farm machinery. Rust-brown barges with missile racks strapped on like duct-taped wings. They were ugly, desperate, and brimming with vengeance. The galaxy had mocked the execution. Humanity had used the live broadcast as a homing beacon. The warden's blade hovered midair. Shouts filled the arena. Guards rushed. Civilians panicked. And Elias? Elias laughed until blood filled his mouth. Told you. 8 minutes. Explosions lit the horizon as the ragtag fleet rained fire. Vathrian frigates scrambled to respond, but the swarm overwhelmed them in sheer madness. Every screen across the stars showed the impossible. Humanity outnumbered, outgunned, yet tearing through an empire with duct-taped determination. The announcer's voice cracked. Cut the stream. Too late, Elias rasped. Every world had already seen. The warden lunged, blade descending. Elias hurled himself forward, rope burning against skin, skull crashing into alien jaw. The impact sang through his bones. The warden reeled, stunned less by pain than by audacity. Earthsport, Elias spat, spitting blood. We call that a touchdown. The guards piled in, but bombardment struck the arena's outer walls. Debris rained down, screams echoing. Elias rolled, bound, refusing to stay still. Cameras swiveled, drawn like moths to his defiance. Across the galaxy, Viewers saw not a broken prisoner, but a bloodied soldier who still smiled. Ships breached atmosphere. Dropships hammered into the sand. Marines poured out. Not polished elites, but farmers, mechanics, volunteers who had seen the broadcast and refused to stay home. They fought with everything from plasma rifles to sharpened mining drills. Civilians were evacuated first. That was the human way. Rescue the weak, then the warrior. The fleet risked everything for children, not for glory. Elias lay in the dust, watching, pride swelling heavier than pain. At last, Marines reached him, blades flashing through the ropes. He staggered upright, swaying, ghillie suit in tatters, chest heaving. A medic shouted for a stretcher, but Elias pushed him aside. Cameras still recorded. He planted his boots, blood streaking his face, and raised his chin to the galaxy. "We are humanity," he said, voice ragged yet fierce. "We don't break. We don't bow. And we sure as hell don't forgive." He saluted. Silence swept the stars. Even enemies froze, struck dumb by the audacity of one man, turning execution into prophecy. The arena collapsed around him. The fleet roared overhead. And somewhere across billions of screens, a child whispered again, 8 minutes. Later, they would call it the turning point, the spark of rebellion that burned an empire. But in that moment, Elias Kane was just a soldier standing, stubborn and unyielding, proof that one man's defiance could ignite worlds. And if you ever doubt your own worth, reader, remember this. Dignity is not granted by empires or titles. It is carved in the quiet refusal to bow, in the reckless courage to laugh when all others despair. Sometimes, 8 minutes of faith is all it takes to change the universe. They called it victory, but the air still smelled of blood and ozone. New Arcadia skies were blackened with smoke from the Vathrian warships that had fallen in flaming arcs, their carcasses scattered across fields once meant for wheat and wildflowers. Children played near the wrecks now, scavenging glowing shards of alien alloy as though they were seashells from a ruined beach. Humanity had survived the spectacle, but survival is not the same as safety, and Elias Kane knew it. He limped through the settlement, ribs bound with coarse bandages, ghillie suit torn to rags that clung to him like a second skin. To the people, he was a symbol. To himself, he was a man stitched together with anger and pain, carrying ghosts who whispered every time he closed his eyes. Farmers pressed food into his hands. Children saluted with clumsy earnestness, and strangers whispered his name like a spell. 8 minutes. Yet Elias felt no glory in the worship. He remembered his squad mates burning on the fields, remembered the silence of men who would never laugh at bad chow hall jokes again. At the edge of town, refugees had built a makeshift clinic out of plasteel sheets and prayer. Inside, Dr. Mira Callan worked tirelessly, stitching wounds with hands that never seemed to tremble. She was slender, dark-haired, eyes steady even in exhaustion. Elias had spoken few words to her, yet something in her calm presence held him when the chaos threatened to unravel him. She had been there when they cut him free, her gaze meeting his across the firelit dust, not pitying, not afraid, only seeing. "Your stitches are sloppy," she said one evening, catching him wrapping his ribs with duct tape. He grinned, winced, and replied, "Duct tape fixes everything. Even me." She arched a brow. "Someday I'd like to meet this mythical duct tape you humans worship. You'll have to fight the universe for it," Elias said, settling onto the cot she shoved at him. He pretended to sleep while she worked, her hands brushing his skin lightly, like she feared he'd vanish if touched too hard. For a time, peace pretended to exist. Families rebuilt, laughter returned in cautious fragments, and broadcasts of Elias's defiance rippled across colonies, sparking small rebellions. Yet beneath it all, the storm brewed. The Vathrians had lost a battle, not the war. Their fleets were regrouping, gathering like thunderheads on the rim of known space. Spies whispered of a retaliatory purge. No mercy, no prisoners. The tribunal would not forgive humiliation. Elias knew the countdown had only begun. One night, as firelight painted the settlement in amber glow, the survivors gathered. A council formed. Miners, farmers, engineers, and a few scarred soldiers who had refused to lay down arms. They argued about evacuation, defense, alliances. Fear shaped their words. "They'll come with fleets larger than the sky itself," one farmer shouted. "We have no chance." "We survived once," Mira countered. Her voice, though tired, carried iron. "We survived because we refused to bow. We will again." Elias listened, silent until they turned to him, demanding prophecy from their reluctant symbol. He shifted, leaning on the cane Mira had forced him to use, and finally said, "You don't beat an empire head-on. You bleed it. Mock it. Break its stories until even its own soldiers stop believing. The Vathrians lost because the galaxy saw them fail to kill one bound man. That's a wound they'll never close." The room quieted. Hope flickered, fragile but alive. But hope was tested soon. 3 days later, the sky darkened again. Not with fleets, but with a single ship, sleek and terrible, carrying emissaries of the tribunal. They landed outside the settlement, demanding the human who had humiliated them. Elias walked out alone, against Myra's protests, his rifle slung though he barely had strength to aim. The emissaries, robed in obsidian, stepped forward with voices sharp as knives. "Humankind," one hissed, "your defiance has destabilized sectors. Surrender yourself, and we will spare this settlement." Behind him, the town held its breath. Children peered from windows. Farmers clutched tools like weapons. Myra's hands clenched white around her medkit. Elias saw their eyes, saw the weight of trust he had never sought but could not deny. He spat blood into the dust. "You want me?" He spread his arms wide. "Come and take me. Just know Earth's got this little thing called reality TV. Once the whole galaxy's seen your failure, reruns are forever." Confusion flickered in alien eyes. They did not understand the cruelty of a meme. The emissary raised a weapon. Tension shattered into chaos. Shots rang out, townsfolk scattered, and Elias hurled himself behind wreckage, firing with cracked ribs, screaming. The Marines fought beside farmers, children threw stones, and Mira dragged the wounded to safety with no regard for her own life. The battle raged, brutal and fast. Elias moved like a storm, every bullet a curse, every breath a rebellion. But he was only one man, and the Vathrians pressed hard. At last, as smoke blinded him, he saw Mira cornered, an alien soldier's blade raised above her. He didn't think. He charged, slamming his broken body between her and death. The blade tore across his shoulder, fire lancing down his arm. Yet he held the alien's wrist and growled through clenched teeth, "Not today." He drove his knee into the creature, stole its weapon, and cut it down with feral rage. The town rose with him. Fury spread like wildfire. Farmers wielded plows like halberds. Miners swung drills. Children screamed battle cries they had learned from vids of Earth's ancient wars. The emissaries faltered, overwhelmed not by numbers, but by sheer, unrelenting defiance. Humanity's curse, the refusal to stop fighting even when common sense begged surrender. At last, the survivors drove the Vathrians back to their ship. Flames scarred the ground, smoke choked the air, but the settlement still stood. Elias collapsed to his knees, vision swimming, Myra's hands pressing against his wounds, her face pale with fear and anger. "You're gonna die if you keep doing this," she whispered fiercely. "Maybe," he rasped, blood staining his grin, "but dying's not the worst thing. Giving up is." The ship fled, shame trailing like smoke. The people cheered weakly, exhausted but unbroken. The galaxy would hear of this too, how one soldier, already legend, had turned a backwater town into warriors. Later, as Elias lay in the clinic, Mira at his side, he finally let his guard drop. Her hand rested over his, steady, anchoring. No declarations passed between them, but in the quiet, something stronger than words settled, a bond woven of survival, respect, and the stubborn grace of choosing to live despite the odds. And if you're listening now, wondering what courage truly is, remember this. It is not absence of fear, nor victory. in every battle. Courage is the quiet act of standing again and again, so that others may believe they too can rise. It is a torch passed from scarred hands to trembling ones, lighting the way forward. Courage, like hope, is contagious, and always begins with someone daring to refuse the silence. The galaxy had not forgotten humiliation. Empires rarely do. When the Vathrians returned, they did not arrive with emissaries or threats. They came with an armada so vast it blotted out the stars. The people of New Arcadia stared upward in horrified silence, watching the sky fracture with the arrival of ships whose shadows stretched across continents. This was not intimidation. It was extermination. Elias Kane stood at the settlement's edge, rifle slung over his battered shoulder, Mira beside him with her medkit strapped tight. Around them, survivors fortified barricades. Farmers turned engineers wired explosives, and children carried messages with a seriousness that belied their age. Every face reflected the same truth. They would not run. Not again. Mira whispered, "They'll burn everything. There's no way we hold against that." Elias smirked, though exhaustion lined his features like carved stone. "Then we make them choke on it. Empires hate losing more than they love winning. Let's give them a loss they'll never bury." A hush settled as the first strike screamed through the atmosphere, fire raining across the plains. The settlement trembled. People scattered to shelters, weapons primed, eyes wide but steady. This was no longer a battle for survival. It was a battle for dignity, the kind that echoes for centuries. The rising chaos pressed harder than any siege before. Bombardments shattered fields, mechs descended like armored titans, and drones swarmed in clouds that blotted out the moon. Elias led squads through collapsing streets, his voice cutting through fear with commands sharp as flint. Mira dragged the wounded into basements, her hands soaked in blood that never dried. She stitched, bandaged, whispered encouragement, never faltering even as the walls cracked around her. "Where's the duct tape?" One miner gasped through broken ribs, half delirious. Mira cursed under her breath, but smiled despite herself. Elias tossed a roll at the man and growled, "See? Even the galaxy knows duct tape's holy." The joke sparked laughter, shaky but real, and for a moment the fear bent beneath it. Hours blurred into a relentless storm. Every strike, every casualty pulled Elias closer to the brink. His body screamed rebellion with each step, his wounds a chorus of pain. Yet he refused to rest, refused to falter because the people were watching, because Mira was watching, and because somewhere, deep in his marrow, he believed that as long as one human still stood, the galaxy had no right to claim victory. The climax came not with fire from the sky, but with a voice that cut through the chaos. The High Warden himself, descending in a towering command ship, his image broadcast to every world once more. The same alien who had raised a blade over Elias months ago now glared with venom. "This defiance ends tonight. Humanity dies with you, Kane." The challenge was clear. Elias looked at Mira, her face pale with exhaustion, but her eyes burning. "If I fall," he began. She silenced him with a sharp look. "You don't fall. Not now. Not ever." He chuckled, though it hurt. "Guess I'll need more duct tape." The battle surged toward its zenith. Elias fought through waves of soldiers, his rifle singing until ammunition ran dry, then with stolen blades, fists, and sheer stubborn will. Each step forward was a miracle, each breath a rebellion. Finally, he reached the heart of the field where the warden's armored form towered above. The duel was brutal. Alien strength against human resilience, precision against raw defiance. Elias's body faltered, but his spirit refused. He drove himself forward, every strike fueled by memories of his fallen squad, of children whispering 8 minutes, of Myra's steady hands pulling him back from the edge. The warden sneered, mocking his weakness, but Elias spat blood and grinned. "You should have stayed off live broadcast," he rasped, and with a final surge, he drove the alien's own blade into its chest. The warden collapsed, silence rippling across the battlefield, the broadcast capturing every detail. the fall of a tyrant at the hands of one stubborn soldier who refused to die quietly. The Vathrian forces broke. Discipline shattered. Their fleet, once united, scattered in disarray as human ships and ground fighters pressed with renewed fury. Victory did not come easily, nor cleanly, but it came. Smoke lifted from broken mechs, drones fell like metal rain, and the armada retreated beyond the stars. In the aftermath, the people wept, not with despair but with awe. They had survived the impossible once more, and the galaxy had witnessed it. Already whispers spread. If one soldier could fell their warden, what chance does the Empire truly have? Elias collapsed into Myra's arms, his breath ragged, his body torn nearly past repair. She held him as though she could anchor him to the earth itself. "You're not allowed to die," she whispered fiercely. He smirked through bloodied lips. Who'd make the jokes then? In the weeks that followed, New Arcadia became legend. Songs were sung of the ghillie-clad soldier who mocked death, of the medic who stitched hope with her hands, of a town that defied extinction. Across alien worlds, rebellion sparked. The phrase 8 minutes became not just a memory, but a rallying cry. Elias never claimed command, never sought glory. He returned to the people, helping rebuild fields, carrying stones, planting seeds beside Mira in quiet mornings. Their bond grew in silence, in glances exchanged over soil and sweat, in hands brushing as they passed tools. It was not a fiery romance, but something stronger, forged in survival and shared defiance. Years later, when peace settled like fragile snow, a statue was raised in New Arcadia Square. It did not depict Elias striking down the warden or standing victorious over fleets. It showed him bound in his ghillie suit, smirking against death, because that was the moment that mattered, the defiance that had lit a fire in the galaxy's heart. The plaque beneath bore only 2 words, 8 minutes. And if you carry this story with you, remember, greatness is not found in crowns or empires, nor in victories written in blood. It is found in the stubborn spark that refuses to bow, in a laughter that cracks despair, in the quiet grace of standing for others when your body begs to fall. Never underestimate what you can ignite, for sometimes all it takes is a single act of defiance to burn away the darkness of a universe.